All right, looks like it's 5:30, and I'll go ahead and get started on this, but I'd like to welcome everybody to our 2021 County Ag Investment Program, and now this year also our Next Gen informational meeting. I will ask, if you don't mind, I'm trying to keep an eye on some of it, if you don't mind to mute your microphones. Just kind of keep the background noise down to a minimum there, but feel free if you have any questions, unmute your microphone and answer those, or put that in the chat box if you're on Zoom here. I'll try to keep an eye on those, but I'm just going to kind of go through a little bit on the packet, kind of what to expect for the CAIP instructions. Really not a lot of differences from last year, so if a lot of you all have participated in the past, not too many differences there. I hope everybody can see excuse me, see my screen here. Should see at the top of it 2021 County Agricultural Investment Program Producer Packet Instructions. If you do not see that on your screen, excuse me, let me know. But just try to outline a few general instructions there. So again, just kind of reiterate for some of you all that may not understand, the County Ag Investment Program is a 50% cost share program. You're able to apply every year. The county maximum you can get each year is $4,000. So you'd have to spend $8,000 to get the full four. A whole slew of different items that can be covered. Excuse me. But and you can find that all those things that are covered on our website. You can just Google Woodford County Extension or visit the woodford.ca.uky.edu website. There's a cost share information tab on there. Then off to the left, you'll see a couple of several different tabs. One of those being the County Ag Investment Program. Click on that, and you'll see all the different investment areas that you can participate in. You can participate in up to 3 of those each year. So you might pick fencing, you may pick large animal, and maybe value added. If you're trying to do freezer beef or something like that, you need to build some fence and buy some feed bunks, and maybe doing some value added with the meat processing. So all 3 of those could be covered to make up that $4,000 that you're eligible for. So, but again, I'm just going to kind of go through the application here a little bit. Not much different from last year, but the big thing is answering all the questions on it. We can't give you points for things that are unanswered. There's also a report, producer report form in that packet. Most of you are familiar with. It's where you actually explain, what you're planning on doing. That kind of helps us on our end steer anybody away from doing things that may not be eligible. Sometimes people want to buy a tractor with some of this money, and that's one thing we can't do with it. So at that point, I can kind of say from the get-go, hey, we can do some things, but we can't. We're not going to be able to do it. Help you on the tractor kind of thing. So, so that's going to be included. There's also an educational requirement. Tonight, this meeting does not count for that educational requirement. But I'm pretty lenient on what does count. Webinar, especially this day and time right now with COVID still kind of going on and lingering around. We're going to have a lot of opportunities here in January and February and March to get some of that education done. But other webinars, things like that can count. The biggest thing is if we've got some sort of documentation, you attended some of those, that sort of thing. So if you got any questions on that, feel free to just shoot me or give me a call or shoot me an email, and I can kind of let you know what'll count and what won't. If you've got some questions, if it's not an extension sponsored event, something like that. So, so there's an education form or requirement as part of that. And then at the back of this whole application thing is some producer guidelines and responsibilities you all can kind of read through. I'm not going to go through all that tonight, but the biggest things are what you're responsible for on your end, and who's eligible is really the big things that states in there. Also, there is the Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan. Now, I believe starting last year, it is a requirement. You have to have a Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan in order to participate. Before, you just got points if you had one. You got some points if you'd updated it within the last few years. You do still get some points if you update it or keep it updated with the Conservation Office. They've just revamped that whole Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan. So I will say there's an online version now. And you can create an account essentially with the Energy and Environment Cabinet, fill out that form online, and you can print off. They'll give you the option at the end of that to print off the whole form. You can do that, or you can come into the Conservation Office and meet with Rachel Kane, who's our operations manager here at the Woodford County Conservation District. If you have not met her yet, she can kind of sit down and go through that with you online, or she can give you a paper copy to fill out. I will say the online version is a lot easier, just because it kind of automatically fills a lot of that stuff in for you. After you select a certain BMP or best management practice on there, it automatically tabulates those in future things on the online version. But long story short, we either need to pay, if you have an old plan, that's perfectly acceptable. We would just need pages 39 and 40 of that old plan. Or if you do a new plan, we can either take a copy of the entire plan or that summary sheet that it gives you the option to print off the website. So, but we do have to have something that's going to list all of your best management practices out. That helps the scoring committee when they go in and score all those to give you all the points that you're eligible for. There is a question on there you can get up to 6 points for. I know I think it's like a point for each best management practice, up to 6. So it really helps with some of the confusion on that scoring for the scoring committee. So we do request that you turn that water quality plan in. And then again, this year you'd have until July 1st of 2022 to get that project completed. I know we're a little bit later than normal this year, and I apologize. It's all depends on how fast Frankfurt moves a lot of times, and so some things kind of got moved a little slower this year than normal. So things kind of got pushed back a little bit. So we can go essentially on receipts. We're able to go back 6 months from when the county signs the agreement with Frankfurt. That happened November the 18th of 2021. So we can go back to May the 18th on receipts. So anything you all have done since May the 18th, and it's an eligible project, could be, that's kind of the eligible time frame we're looking at. Or if you're waiting to kind of see if you get approved first, you'd have until July 1st of 2022 to get the project completed and receipts and any other paperwork turned in. So again, just kind of turn in an original application. You can drop them off. There's 2 drop boxes on our building. There's one around back that I've got highlighted here, which is right outside the extension front door. There's a big UK sign on the wall, can't miss it. And it's right beside that. So you're more than welcome to drop those off there if it's after hours or before hours on the weekends, something like that. We're open 8 to 4:30 every day. We will be closed though, starting December 24th through January. We'll reopen January 3rd. So we wanted to make sure everybody had plenty of time to get this in, especially with the holidays right now. So we extended that deadline to get applications in to January 5th. So you can bring it in while we're open, or you can drop it off in one of the drop boxes. There's also a drop box at the very front of the agri-resource building, beside the FSA and conservation door. You're more than welcome to drop it off there as well. I'll be checking both of those. So pretty straightforward on where you can drop it off. I hope everybody's kind of seeing the application scroll by there. So let me know if you don't. But on the producer application, again, this first page, it's all very straightforward. Just contact info, social security number, mailing address, email address if you've got one, your farm number. We don't keep a record of your farm number, but if you do not remember your farm serial number, you can check with the FSA office up front, and they should be able to get that to you. If your farm spans multiple counties, which I know we do have a few, they're kind of on the Woodford-Jessamine County line, really whatever office you deal with on your FSA, in your FSA programs or payments, you can put that Associated County office on there, but most of you are probably dealing with the Woodford County office already. And I do know there's kind of some gray area in there. You may participate a lot in Woodford County, but if a bulk of the farm is in Jessamine County, and you're doing a practice on part of the farm that's in Jessamine County, then at that point, you really need to apply for Jessamine County funds for some of those. Some things we can probably get by with, but if you're building a fence, let's say, and it's on a part of the farm, it's in another county, technically you need to be applying for that particular project in Jessamine County. And you're actually eligible as a producer to get up to $5,000 statewide for those of you that may have farms kind of on the county line. So you can get some funding from Jessamine and Woodford County. It's just you got that $5,000 max statewide. So, and again, it kind of lists on here, does your farm serial number, span multiple counties, yes or no? Your eligibility requirement with your ag water quality plan. And must be on file at the conservation office. So simple enough. Once you print one off, you can email it or drop it off over the conservation office, and they just keep one on file for you. So kind of scrolling on down here. Again, this is going to be one individual from a farming entity may apply. So we can't have husband and wives apply. Fathers and sons, if there's two separate farming entities. So if maybe you all share some equipment or something like that, but if one of you has your own set of books, you rent your own properties or farm your own farms, and all the accounting separate, both of you can apply. But we can't do people from the same household unless it's kind of that exception. And typically the board can and probably will request copies of Schedules F's or Schedule C's to kind of verify that if there is a discrepancy. So, is there a question on any of that, or? All right, moving on. You can apply as a tenant farmer. As such, typically what we would just need would be there is a tenant owner acknowledgement form that you can find on our website. It's also part of this packet here. Really just you would apply under the landowner's farm serial number, and all it does is the owner just pretty much gives the tenant the right or the ability to sign up for those programs or this program using their farm number. So if it is a capital improvement, a significant capital improvement, like a fence or a shed or maybe grain storage or something like that on a rented farm, we do like to see a permission of 5 years of use or a long-term rental agreement for that property to the tenant. So kind of just something to think about as a tenant. You can also apply. You don't have to have that if you're applying maybe to buy some breeding livestock or something using the landowner's farm serial number. So don't necessarily worry about the written permission as much if it's something that's not a permanent fixture. So moving on kind of into the questions a little bit. Most of you all that have done this before have seen a lot of these in the past. So question one, just describing what your past participation has been. If you received cost share funds once, twice, 3 or more times, or you've never received funds through CAIP. Again, our program administrator that goes through and takes care of the scoring on all these and administers all the checks and that sort of thing, he will actually go back and verify all of these answers. So I've had some people say they've never gotten it, and generally they have a couple of times. So all of those answers may be verified and that sort of thing. Previous program year for question 2, check which answer best describes you. I know a lot of you may have been placed on a waiting list last year. So typically we have more applications than we can fund, but maybe you met the minimum score to be approved. We just didn't have the funds because we had other people score higher. So maybe you received funding, you were put on a waiting list, you didn't get to complete your project, maybe you were put on a waiting list and did. So you just check those appropriate answers on there on how that pertained to you for the 2020 cost share program. So I know some of you all probably got those completed earlier this spring and summer, but it would be for the 2020 year. So 3, 4, and 5, and 6, hopefully are pretty self-explanatory. Have you been a resident or managed a farm in Woodford County 5 years or more? Pretty much how long have you been farming or sharing in the financial risk of the farm? Maybe you're a spouse that's applying and haven't actively participated as much on the farm, but you're still sharing in that financial risk. So however those questions would best pertain to you. Number 6 is usually one I get a lot of questions on is Schedule F or Schedule C. Typically when you file if you're not real familiar with that, when you file your income taxes, if you're writing off any of those expenses, business expenses for the farm or income from the farm, you'll be filing a Schedule F. For those of you that may have a farm that's incorporated, you'd probably be filing a Schedule C. The biggest thing is that it's for agricultural purposes or for the farm. It's not for Joe's plumbing business, that sort of thing. So, again, the board does have every right to request those. Most often they don't, but if there is something in question, a lot of times they can and have that right to do that. So just to let y'all know. Any questions on any of those questions of the application? Or if not, we'll kind of move on here. Number 7, again, just a reminder, all these funds were used to help the producers diversify away from tobacco. So there's still some points awarded to those that have owned quota in the past or marketed tobacco in the past. You get some points if you were a dependent of if your parents used to raise tobacco. But even if you haven't, had a lot of people that apply and get approved, even though they haven't raised tobacco in the past or owned any quota. But definitely you do get some points if you have in the past. So number 8, adding a new farming enterprise, modifying an enterprise. So example with that may be adding a new enterprise. Maybe you raise vegetables or something, and now you're starting to break into some more nursery crops. Or maybe you've traditionally been livestock and trying to raise some more crops or selling some cash hay, things like that. Could be adding a new enterprise, modifying an enterprise. Maybe if you're been raising cattle, and especially now with the demand for local beef, you're doing more freezer beef for folks. That could be modifying an enterprise or adding a new practice. Maybe anything from doing tillage on all your ground to doing no-till. So pretty open on some of that. Biggest thing is I think they want to see, you're trying to do some changes and improvements and that sort of thing. So again, just kind of listing what you added or modified there. Do you keep any production records? That could be handwritten records. It could be Excel files. It could be financial, files on QuickBooks or Quicken. Any kind of production related records where you're keeping track of yields, inputs, that sort of thing. Like I said, it can be handwritten. There's nothing saying that's wrong. So, but you do get some points if you are using some sort of record keeping software like a QuickBooks, like Excel, even, or Quicken, anything like that. Any kind of financial related record keeping software. A lot of times you get a few points for doing that. Question 10, increasing your farm income by selling value-added products, kind of going back to that freezer beef example. If you've traditionally been selling feeder calves and now you're trying to sell some finished beef, that's an example of a value-added product. You're modifying that calf into a package for the freezer. So, taking tomatoes from the farmer's market and that you traditionally sell and turn it into salsa or anything like that. It gives you a few examples there, but any kind of value-added type things, and it doesn't have to be, your primary enterprise. And a lot of you have a lot of different things going on the farm. So could be if you've got a beehive and you've been selling some honey, and that could be something that's example of a value-added product. So having a marketing plan for your operation. Again, on that, most of you probably have some sort of marketing plan for your operation. It may be kind of in your head a little bit, but making sure you've got a plan with where you're taking your products, that sort of thing. Should be fairly well straightforward on that. If you've soil tested within the last 24 months, I know a lot of folks I've had some folks that's had greenhouse or soilless media and things like that don't really soil test. But even then, I'd say, you know, if you can do a test on some of that soilless media, or if you do any kind of tissue testing, things like that, definitely check yes on that. Then question 13 is that best management practices from your ag water quality plan. Just listing those out, or you can put C attached, either way, as long as you've got your water quality plan attached to your application there. So it'll list all those out on your water quality plan. I guess that is one thing to note. I do know that I think with some of the forms now, it just has your signature page. It doesn't list any of those BMPs. So be sure whenever you turn in has your BMPs listed on it, so that we can get the points that you need for that question. So you do get some points if you've updated your water quality plan within the last 5 years. Again, most of you all probably done it in the last 2 or 3 since it became a requirement, but so I'd say a lot of you could probably check yes on that. It's not something you've got to update every year by any means, but you do get some points as long as you've done it within the last 5 years. Then are you a member of a county, statewide, or national ag organization? You know, it gives you some examples there. I think a lot of folks are members of cattlemen's, or maybe master gardeners or farm bureau, things like that. So and then if you're in a leadership role. 16, are you currently subscribed to an extension newsletter? I'd say most of you probably are if you got the announcement on this. A lot of you can probably check yes on that. Did you attend a financial leadership or marketing based education session within the last 12 months? I'd say a lot of you might have attended. Last couple of years we've done a funding resources for farmers workshop. The last couple of years we've done it on Zoom, this platform here, usually in November. That can count for as a financial type session. You know, if you've got some questions on that, feel free to reach out to me. If you've got a specific, you know, event in mind that you're not really sure if it qualifies or not, just let me know, and I'll let you know. But you know, things like we've done the Kentucky Beef Conference, which is it's one I'm pretty familiar with, but it's a lot more marketing based. We talk about kind of marketing feeder calves and things like that. So something like that would definitely count. Are you a Kentucky Proud member? You know, pretty straightforward. Yes or no. There is some information there if you wanted to register to become a Kentucky Proud member. So you can get a few points for that. Then have you hosted an on-farm demonstration, field day, or informational workshop within the last 24 months? Again, I think that's pretty straightforward. Then question 20, did you attend a CAIP producer information meeting for the current or previous program year? So that's this event tonight. Feel free to put tonight. I will say for that, since we're watching this virtually and I'm planning on recording this, last year we did it this way, and I was going to do it again. So if y'all don't mind, when you put the date of the event, just put 4601. That's the last 4 digits of our phone number here at the office. But that way we kind of know that you watched it. Otherwise, we'll have some people just kind of jotting down the date since it was on virtual, and that way we can ensure that you watched it. So again, 4601 is the code we'll kind of put down for that a date on the event. And kind of going, I guess, are there any questions on any of the application questions? So this ends the scoring part of the project, or of the program application. So any specific questions on those?
Adam, one quick question for you.
Yeah, I'll say, Liz, I just saw that in the chat box.
Yeah, that one.
If parents didn't actually raise but leased a crop to a tobacco grower, then yes, if your parents owned tobacco quota, and even if you leased it out, you were still quota owners, you could mark that on.
Excellent, thank you.
That. So you should.
Thank you.
Yep, yeah, I've owned quota and or grown and marketed tobacco. So at that point, you own the quota. So any
Adam,
other questions on the Sue?
Yes. Where did you say if we want to go online to print out the pages of the water quality plan, how do we do that?
So they've changed it now to an online platform, and the best way I can tell you is just kind of Google Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan.
Okay.
You actually have to create an account with the Energy and Environmental Cabinet in Frankfort. And once you do that, there's, I think Frankfort's kind of moving more, state government's moving more and more to a lot of this. Is you'll have these online accounts and online portals or gateways, if you will, that you can access all of your different forms and documents that you may have with Frankfort or state government. So once you create that link, they'll have an option of all the different forms you can complete there, and then you'll see the Kentucky Ag Water Quality Plan, and you just fill it out online. But if you got any questions, again, feel free to stop in, check with me, or you can check with Rachel up in the conservation office. And
Okay. And if we want to stop in, we make an appointment first still, is that right?
preferably, yes.
Okay.
Preferably, yes, because
Okay.
I'm not always in here every day, and I know Rachel's not in every day. So at least calling ahead and making sure one of us is here. So
Okay.
may not necessarily be, you don't have to set it out weeks at a time, but at least just calling ahead and making sure we're here. So
Okay. Thank you.
yep. Any other questions on the scored part of the application?
What was that code one more time?
4601 is what we're going to use for the date of the event tonight. So if y'all put the 4601 on there, we know you attended. So, and again, so it doesn't matter if you get this in, this application in today, you get it in January 5th, everybody's going to be scored the same. There's no bearing on what type of project you're wanting to do that's going to influence your score. All those questions we just went over constitutes your entire score. Essentially what the board will do is they'll start at the top of the list, whoever scores the highest, and we just kind of go down until we run out of money. Like I said, we can usually fund around 65 to 70 applications each year. Just kind of depends on how many or how much everybody is requesting. If you request the full 4,000, pretty straightforward. Sometimes you don't have to do that. If you're just wanting to do a small project and get some assistance on it, you can request as little as a couple of bucks if you want. But so we'll start at the top of the list. Everybody that meets that state minimum score of a 44 and higher would be approved. It's just maybe we'll have some people that don't score high enough to be what I kind of call in the money. It just means we ran out of money before we got to you. I know this last year we were able to fund, I think, eight people that were on our waiting list. So as we get closer to that July 1st deadline, we'll kind of see, some people may not have completed all the projects that they intended on, or they give us a call and say, hey, we're not going to be able to spend any of it. So at that point, we kind of start looking at the waiting list and going down the waiting list to as many people as we can and spend all the money is essentially what we're trying to do. So so moving on here a little bit, here's all the list of all the eligible investment areas. Again, you're eligible for up to $4,000 in any one investment area, or you can invest in up to 3 different investment areas. So you may have, a couple $1,000s that you're trying to get back in ag diversification, $1,000 in large animal, and $1,000 in small animal. So you can definitely do that, but we can only do it in up to 3 investment areas. So here you just kind of put your total expected cost that you're planning on spending in each one, and then the amount you're requesting, which would be 50% of that project in CAIP. Again, if you're not 100% sure exactly what you're planning on doing, but you've got a few different projects, be sure to, you can put down $8,000 in any of these. And just because you say, I'm going to spend $8,000 in large animal does not mean you have to spend $8,000 in large animal. You may say, hey, I decided to not go that route, but I want to maybe invest and put a lean-to on the side of the barn or something. Can we change the investment area? We can definitely do that. That's not a problem. We just can't give you any more money than what you request. And we just got to make sure it's an eligible project. So that's kind of the 2 big things on that. Then here's just the acknowledgement and signature page. So signing and dating that. Moving on to the producer report. This is a little bit of it's kind of redundant. Again, you're not scored on any of this here. It's just contact info. And then, maybe checking the box on if you complete this with assistance, or even if you didn't have any assistance. But here's where you'd actually spell out what I'm planning on doing. And this is where I really try to head off any disasters or people spending money thinking they're going to get assistance, and it not being an eligible project. So here, just kind of checking the box, what investment areas you're wanting to participate in, describing, what practice you're wanting to do, and then the total cost for that project area that you're projecting. And again, I always tell folks, err on the high side, especially in this day and time when, we're seeing some people saying, oh, I can probably get this done for a couple $1,000s, and materials have shot up, and now it's $2,500 or $3,000. So definitely err a little on the high side. There's nothing wrong with that. So, but we just can't give you any more money than what you requested. So again, this is kind of goes through each of the investment areas all the way down through here, and then signing and dating this form at the bottom. Then with the educational requirement, as I mentioned, pretty open on that. I've had some folks, maybe they've met with their CPA to do some tax planning, things like that. That's something that can count. Maybe you're thinking about incorporating the farm or setting up an LLC. You met with an attorney. That's something that can account. Any of our extension related presentations or seminars, workshops. I'll probably, after the holidays here, I'll send out some, we've got a lot of things coming up here in January and February. So I'll send out different educational opportunities there that you all can do. And this does not have to be completed before you turn in your application. This does not have to be completed by that January 5th deadline. It just has to be completed before we can give you a check on July 1. So, so the big thing with that is, you can rip this page off if you haven't done it yet, and then fill it out later. Or if you've already done it, you can go ahead and fill it out and turn that in. So, and it's pretty easy to follow. It's just, what it was you watched, who presented, maybe who sponsored it. If it was an extension related event, you can put UK or extension, how it relates to your farm. Maybe it was a beef cattle meeting, and you could say, well, it's we raise beef cattle on the farm. That's kind of, I usually try to steer folks away from, if you're traditionally a grain crop and tobacco farmer, and all of a sudden you're going to a llama production workshop. Sometimes it makes it a little harder to figure out and connect the dots, but I know a lot of you may be looking at some alternative enterprises and that sort of thing, but do like to see how you relate that to the farm. So, and then just kind of what you learned. It can be pretty short and sweet and to the point. So we don't have to have a novel on any of this, but it's just the form we've got to have on file for this education requirement. So, and then if you're able to, I understand webinars, that sort of thing, presenters or event representatives can't always sign that, but I can sign off on most of those. So, and I'll definitely sign off on the county extension agent signature down there at the bottom. So, any questions on the education form or anything, or the producer report form?
I have a question. I think it was on page 14. I was just curious, what was it saying? I think it was basically like your plan for, it was the next page up, but like I guess your plan, like large animal, it was like genetics, or I guess, or maybe it was page 13, I'm sorry, but like, I guess what you're planning on using it for, doing with it. Does that mean just this year? Because I have more of like a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan rather than like a this year plan.
So,
like,
correct. So you're just going to describe what you're wanting to purchase for your cost share practice. So if it's going to be building a fence, you're just going to describe, hey, I'm wanting to build a woven wire fence. Maybe, a perimeter fence, you can put in interior fence. It's really what you're planning on spending. If you get approved for the funds, what you're going to spend and request reimbursement for.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
That's all we really need to know. So, good question. think that's about it. We've got the tenant owner acknowledgement form that I mentioned. If there are any tenants that are wanting to apply and use their landowner's farm serial number, this is the form that we would need for that. And then the last of all this is just your producer guidelines and responsibilities. So it kind of talks about eligibility, who can apply, kind of the producer definition. I know one question I've gotten several times in the past is we do have to have a social security number, unfortunately. They will not allow just an EIN. We can issue a 1099, and if your farm is incorporated and you've got a separate EIN or TIN that you use for the farm, we can use that number when we issue the 1099. But the Kentucky Office of Ag Policy has stated to me several times that we have to have a social security number to identify the producer that applies. So again, kind of going back to the application part, all of those questions on the application are going to pertain to that individual whose name is on it. So if you're, maybe the spouse, husband and wife, maybe the husband's got an off-farm job and doesn't do a lot on the farm, and the wife may be the one that's the partner may be the one that's significantly doing all the work on the farm. If the husband applies, all those questions would be as they relate to him, and not the other. So definitely kind of keep that in mind when you're applying. It's not necessarily as a household. It's really more for the individual whose name is on there. The individual whose name is on there is also the one that has to complete any other certifications or the education requirement that's on there. I know some things like the large animal investment area, supposed to be beef quality assurance certified. We'll have some of those coming up later on after the first of the year. I've actually got one scheduled for Wednesday at 10. If anybody needs to jump on and do one of those, the 15th, but it has to be in the name of the person who's on the application. So I know sometimes we've got some folks that maybe has some mobility issues and that sort of thing, trying to get out, especially landowners or absentee landowners that may be wanting to apply. And I'll definitely work with, the board will definitely work with anybody that's in those type situations. So we'll try to get everybody the opportunity to apply that we can. So. And again, all the rest of this is just all the different things on your guidelines and responsibilities. You can kind of read at home. So, any questions on the CAIP program?
No.
So these are going to be due back to our office January 5th, 2022. I guess kind of the big things is, like I said, I was wanting to hit, we can take receipts that are May the 18th of 2021 or later, up through July 1st, 2022. I guess some of the bigger changes starting last year or this past year, we actually have to request a proof of payment now. So we can't, you can't do any cash purchases. So that may be in the form of a canceled check from the bank. It could be a credit card statement, could be a store statement. So if you're at Woodford Feed and maybe you've got a charge account there and you charge some stuff, you've got the receipt that states what the items were that were eligible, maybe with some fence posts or something like that. Now we've got to have either the check you use or copy of that canceled check from the bank or bank statement, or maybe it's the store statement from Woodford Feed when you got that at the end of the month, just showing that that was to match up with that receipt that was paid. So that was new this last year. I know it's kind of caused a little bit of headache with some folks. Again, I apologize. It's just a new guideline from Frankfurt that we've got to follow. So there's that. Also new for 2021, this program year, if you are purchasing a bull in the large animal investment area, it has to either be genomically tested or genomically enhanced EPD. And essentially all that means is on the EPDs for the bull that there's an accuracy value. That accuracy value has to be a 0.3 or higher for calving ease, That's the only one they've really outlined for that. If the EPD does not have an accuracy value, then at that point, that bull would have to be genomically tested to be to qualify. To work with, you can give me a call if you got some questions on that. Essentially, it's working with the veterinarian on taking the blood sample. And what that does is essentially they'll look at the DNA. When they send that off, they'll look at the DNA, and they can kind of simulate essentially what the first 25 or 30 offspring that sire may have. And when they do that, they can kind of get you a more accurate representation on your EPD numbers is the goal with that. So like, as I mentioned, you'll see that accuracy number. It's going to be some number between 0 and 1. So let's say it's a 0.62. It would just mean that you've got a 62% confidence that that EPD number is correct. And we're just looking for a 0.3 or above on calving ease. So keep that in mind if you're looking for bulls or if you're selling bulls. I know I've had a few questions on that. That's new for this year. And we'll definitely work with anybody doing that. So if there's no more questions on CAIP, I don't see any on the chat box. I'm going to switch over to the Next Gen application. Again, the Next Gen is a program. It's been around for a few years. That program that the Kentucky Office of Ag Policy has offered. We haven't really taken advantage of it until now, but it's a different pot of money. It's the exact same program as CAIP. It's a 50% match. It's a $4,000 max. Same time frame as far as eligible receipts. Everything's essentially the same. The goal with it is it's designed for 18 to 40 year olds. So you have to be 40 or younger in order to apply. And it kind of gives you an opportunity to, I guess, an additional chance at getting funding. You can only participate in one or the other of the programs, but I'm encouraging each of you that may be eligible to participate in Next Gen to apply in both. And essentially what we'll do is maybe you'll get approved in one and not the other, but at least we can get you in one of those categories. But the goal of the Ag Development Board this year was really to target young producers, try to get the funds in the hands of more young producers that we can. We had several last year that applied, and a few that just, they made it on the waiting list. They met the minimum scores. They just didn't score as high as maybe some other people. So we're hoping to kind of give this, it's just a different pool of money to specifically target those individuals that are 18 to 40. And again, it's pretty much all the same as CAIP. The application does look a little bit different. First page is all the same, contact info. But moving down, it does require a 3-year business plan be attached with the application. That's really the biggest difference. The questions all look a little different, but the big thing is that 3-year business plan with the application. So wanted to kind of note that. And there is a mentor eligibility. I will gladly serve for most of you all, or any of you all. Just reach out to me. If you need somebody if you're wanting to apply on this and needing a mentor, just reach out to me and we can kind of go through that. But pretty straightforward on having a mentor for the program. And again, a lot of questions, that you've seen before, like your tobacco dependency in the past, as far as raising and marketing tobacco. If you've got off-farm income, again, kind of, adding a new farming enterprise, or have you changed any marketing strategies, that sort of thing. But so the questions look a little bit different, but it's still all the same process, all the same deadlines, all the same eligible projects and that sort of thing. So are there any questions on the Next Gen program?
Where it says if you've added a new farming enterprise, what if this is your first farming enterprise?
Then I would say you have added a farming enterprise.
Okay, well, added is past tense. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Any other questions? right, so with that, again, just a reminder for the date for the informational meeting for tonight. If y'all don't mind to put the code 4601 on the application so we know that y'all watch this. And either the next gen or the CAIP applications are both due back to the Woodford County Extension Office by January 5th of 2022. Again, you can drop those off in those black boxes. There's one on the front of the building, one on the rear of the building by the big UK sign, or you can hand deliver it if you'd rather do that. Again, we're going to be closed December 24th for Christmas, and we're going to be closed that following week. Through New Year's, we'll be reopened on January 3rd. I'll try to send some other email reminders out to everybody, especially probably the 2nd or 3rd, just to remind everybody to get their applications in. So with that, I appreciate everybody logging on tonight. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can shoot me an email, adam.probst@uky.edu, or give me a call here at the office, 873-4601.